Hey everybody, it's Randy Ray, the Literate Texan. It's December and I'm back. I've been, most of y'all know that I've had health problems. I've been in and out of the hospital all year, but it looks like things have turned around and I'm going to be able to make some videos and my health is looking up, so you ain't rid of me yet, folks. This video is an announcement for a year of reading Proust in 2025, an event that I am co-hosting with Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads. And it was my idea, by the way. Just going to point that out. What happened was I was reading, I saw a video first. Benjamin McAvoy has a channel where he talks about classic literature, which he clearly loves. And he posted a video, How to Read in Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, which is something I knew about, but had never really considered reading before I watched this video. But shortly after that video came out, I read a novel by Larry McMurtry called Dwayne's Depressed. It's the sequel to The Last Picture Show and Texasville. And in it, the main character, Dwayne, is seeing a therapist. Spoiler alert, he's seeing a therapist, and he falls for the therapist, and he wants to see her again after their therapy ends. And she agrees to see him, but only under the condition that he read In Search of Lost Time over the course of a year. And that's what she told him. She said, you can finish it in a year if you read about 10 pages a day, which is about the same thing that Ben McAvoy mentioned in his video. So I thought, well, you know what? If it's good enough for Dwayne and Dwayne's depressed, it's probably good enough for me too. So my friend Greg has experience hosting big events, reading long books. And according to him, he started In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust at least twice and finished the first volume. And depending on which edition you get, it's 6 or 7 volumes. The edition I have is the Modern Library Classics edition, which is 6 volumes and 8 pounds. Okay, and you can get this for $50. That's not a lot for this many pages. It's 4,200 pages of content, and or 4,200 pages of novel. My understanding is it's a single novel, but in 6 volumes. But you can't have a novel that's this wide. Anyway, they published it in multiple volumes because you just physically couldn't have a book that big. It's the same thing they did with The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings is, the author considered it one novel, not multiple novels, because you couldn't put all that much book into one edition very easily, so they published it in 3 volumes. So there's 6 volumes to this, 4,211 pages. We're going to start on January, I don't know, I'm going to start on January 1st. Some other people are going to start a little later. We have a tentative schedule for those of us who want to read it slowly over the course of a year, posted at a Discord channel specific to our Year of Reading Proust project. And I'll be participating there. Greg will be participating there. I'm sure that we will have live discussions on YouTube, probably on a regular basis. But the schedule shows which page you ought to be on by each Friday. So some people are probably going to rush through it. I don't think that's the way to go about this book. I've heard too many people say that you need to read it slowly and really savor it. That's the plan that I'm going to take. And so I'm fully committed to taking at least a year to read it. I may even read it a little slower than they recommend. One of the recommendations from the Ben McAvoy video that I watched was that you should read this book and keep a journal of your reading. And journal not just about what you're reading in the book, but also about what's going on in your life at the same time. And he suggests making a practice of it. So my plan is to set aside the first hour of my day to drink coffee, read Proust, and then journal about it. I also understand that there's a lot of artwork mentioned throughout the book, and one of the suggestions is to treat those like Easter eggs in a video game and actually look up those works of art so that you can see what he's talking about. Although some of the artwork and the artists in the book are fictional, some of them are real too. And that probably applies to any music that's mentioned in the novel also. And it's a wonderful way to kind of make your reading of a novel more 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional or 7-dimensional or whatever you want to call it, is by experiencing some of the other works that are alluded to in the novel. For example, when you read The Great Gatsby, there are several pieces of jazz music that are mentioned in the novel. And so you can enrich your reading of The Great Gatsby by listening to those pieces. So if I'll be on the lookout for music, and we'll probably post about those things in the Discord group as the year goes on. I am not an expert on Marcel Proust, but I am reading a biography of his to get ready for January. And the biography's long. Even his biography's long. I want to say it's 1,400 pages. I downloaded it to my Kindle. And I've got 3 or 4 books. There's a reader's guide to In Search of Lost Time. I don't have that, but I have 3 or 4 books about In Search of Lost Time. There's one book, and I guess it's relatively famous, called Why You Should Read Proust Before You Waste Your Life. And I've dipped into it a little bit. Some of these books are better to read after you've read the work in question, but sometimes it doesn't hurt to read them before either, or even just to scan them before you read the actual volume in question. So, I'm probably not going to read all the books I have about Proust and all the books I have about In Search of Lost Time beforehand, but you can bet I'm going to skim through all of them, and then I'll have them to read after I've completed In Search of Lost Time, or I might read some of them concurrently. I didn't used to do this. I used to read one book at a time, finish it, and start the next book. But sometime over the last year, I got to the point where I was reading multiple books at one time. And you're not really reading multiple books at one time, but you're switching from one to the other. I probably read about 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, maybe a little more if I'm in the hospital and have the energy. But I rarely spend 3 or 4 hours a day on the same book. I might spend an hour on one book and an hour on another. So my plan is to make this year of Proust, In Search of Lost Time, is meant to be in addition to the reading I normally do. Most of the reading that I do is in the evenings. And so by making it a first thing in the morning practice over a cup of coffee, it seems to me like it's going to make it easier to add it into my daily routine as an almost spiritual practice, which I understand this book is good for that sort of thing. Now, I could be wrong about all of that. I don't know. But I did order a couple of journals so that I could take notes and do the journaling as suggested by Benjamin McAvoy. I'm willing to take any kind of guidance and direction I can from anybody. So anyway, his video is really good, and it's really long and detailed about how to read it. I'm going to put a link to it down below, along with a link to the Discord invite so that you can go to the Discord and join Greg's channel there so that we can get started discussing it there. You can always contact me via email or Voxer or any contact information that you like. It's all going to be down there in the description. I'm not always fast about responding to things. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. Don't get your feelings hurt if I don't respond to an email very quickly, or if I don't respond to a comment that you've left on one of my videos very quickly. Chances are I'll find it in a month or two and respond. But even then, if I don't, just send me another message. I won't get my feelings hurt if you remind me. I've got chemo brain and cancer brain, and I'm naturally having memory issues just from getting older. Cognitive decline or whatever you want to call it. Luckily, it hasn't affected my reading too much. I'm still able to focus on what I read. I'm still able to comprehend it. I think I comprehend it anyway. We may start reading In Search of Lost Time together, and I might start making comments, and you guys might think, is he reading the same book that we are? Because, I do have a unique perspective on things. If you've watched the channel for any length of time, you probably noticed that anyway. But I want to invite anybody who watches this channel or stumbles across this video to join us in January for a year of reading Proust. And it's a self-paced thing. It's not a college class. It's not modeled after a college class. It's just a bunch of people who are interested in reading this white whale of a novel. I like to compare it to running a marathon, but it's probably more like running an ultra marathon or climbing a mountain. Why would anybody want to read a novel that's 4,200 pages long? Well, I don't know who said it about climbing Mount Everest, but when they asked them why they climbed Mount Everest, they said because it's there. So that's got a lot to do with why we're going to... Anyway, the first volume is called Swan's Way, but that's got a lot to do with why I want to read In Search of Lost Time. You want to talk about some bragging rights. I've got a friend. He's a brilliant man and a great reader, and we have wonderful conversations. He is not on BookTube, but he told me the other day he's the kind of guy that wants to have read it, but doesn't want to read it. And he's also the kind of guy who wants to have written, but doesn't want to write. And that's more or less me too. A lot of the times I'm basically pretty lazy. So anyway, but I want the goods. I want the goodies that are going to come mentally, intellectually, spiritually from reading one of the great works of literature. So that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, so there's your invitation. And thank you for watching. I will be back with new videos very soon. Until then, please stay hydrated, stay sexy.